Okay, here's the 15-minute snapshot of the AB block schedule that I am proposing that we use for the 2022-23 school year. The first thing we need to do is define and describe what an AB block is. It is 8 blocks, or 8 periods, divided into 4 periods on alternating days, a red-white day for Bangor High School. This is intended to blend the best features of the 4x4 block and the daily mod period schedule. You can pause the slide here. I'm not going to spend time in the presentation to try to describe this. You can see it. It is what it is. The only thing that I would point out is that on alternating days, the white day, one of the blocks would be used for advisory and a multi-purpose period, which I'll explain a little bit later. Some key features to the AB block: 75-minute blocks on alternating days. They can be longer, but you would have to extend the school day in order to do that. There are 7 blocks allocated for class offerings and 1 block allocated for multi-purpose use. There are 6 lunch waves. We need 6 lunch waves. That's probably the most limiting factor to building a master schedule at Bangor High School because of the size of our cafeteria. If the lunch waves get any bigger than 190, if they get over 200, it's a little bit chaotic in there. And there is a mandatory 30-minute advisory every other day. I put this slide in here because I want you to take a look at 2 of the most difficult types of students to schedule for opposite reasons. A STEM sophomore is difficult to schedule because they are packing in a lot of stuff in 1 year. What I've done in this example is I've put the 16 mod schedule and what their schedule looked like before we went to the blocks, and this is what it would look like in an alternating day, red-white day AB block schedule. A level 1 honor roll senior is a student that's in good academic standing but isn't necessarily super motivated to take a lot of high-level courses. So this is what it would look like in a 16 mod schedule, and this is the red-white AB day, making it a little bit more feasible to try to talk them into maybe stretching a little bit and taking a higher level course. I do also want to throw this slide in here because I think it's important to know that part of my decision making was based on being able to align to the mission, vision, and the core values articulated in the 10-year strategic plan for the Bangor School Department. A lot of the teachers really wanted us to choose a schedule based on the data. What does the data say about the block schedule, the mod schedule, any of the different formats? It's important to know that there is no evidence, 0 evidence, that any master schedule format is better than the others based on long-term achievement. Long-term achievement is not impacted by the master schedule. It is not impacted by in certain content areas. So the data doesn't give us any kind of clue as to which way we should go. What student achievement does tell us about the master schedule is that there are 2 things that we have to take into consideration. Whatever format we choose, our staff needs professional development. They need confidence going into how they're going to set up their courses and teach their courses. And that will in turn hopefully give students and staff buy-in to the system. And I think we've got student buy-in to block schedules, as you'll see in a little bit with a different slide. It's important to note that student achievement variables include more than just time, like we've been talking about with the master schedule. How people teach, the life factors that students bring to the classroom, are they in the right placement, what is their workload, are they giving effort, are they engaged in the class, and are they enjoying the experience? Those are things that do impact student achievement. The allocation of the time is one very small and, according to the research, fairly insignificant factor. Long-term achievement also is the ability to be successful in higher education and in career choices. It is not based on test scores or GPA, so AP scores and state test scores are not things that we look at. Those in the larger scale are irrelevant when you consider student success beyond their time here at Bangor High School. The data that is important to take into consideration is the data that we have from our own staff and students. Students and staff agreed about stress level and mental health being an important consideration in our schedule. Workload, both in terms of the students as well as teacher prep time and pacing of the coursework, having access to the classes, and to have that access be equitable and fair for all students. In surveying staff and students, we did also ask for narratives, and the staff, these were some of the major concerns that they brought up: performance classes, science labs, depth of learning versus scope and sequence, the repetition, exposure, and chunking of lessons, mental health and wellness, as well as semester-based courses were really important. I just want to explain what this is, and then you can pause and take a look at it if you want. But students overwhelmingly favored those that experienced both mods and the 4x4 block, overwhelmingly favored the 4x4 block compared to the 16 mods. Then I asked teachers their priorities in the block schedule, their priorities in the mod schedule. The ones that they identified as positive, I passed them on to students, and I asked them if they agreed with their teachers. These 5 categories had the most degree of agreement between staff and students regarding the block schedule, and these 3 categories had the most level of agreement between staff and students regarding mods. This chart also was really telling to me because it shows staff and their first, second, and third choice option. If 4x4 block was your first choice, second choice, or third choice, AB, and 16 mods. But even after you ask people to pick a choice or to rank them, we also ask them to what degree do they feel strongly about their choice. And only 27% of our staff responded that their first choice was the only acceptable choice. 73% of our staff is willing to work with whatever system we set up. I further broke that down, and I think this is an important thing to look at. Of the people that said their first choice was the only acceptable format, this is where they came from. I thought it was very interesting to see that only one person on the staff, and it was from the science department, said that the 4x4 block was the only acceptable format. 16 mods has a little bit more support in terms of people saying it's the only acceptable format, and probably world language is the only department where there's a consensus that it is the only way to go. The other departments are spread around a little more evenly. As far as a format that is completely unacceptable, only 5 people said that the AB block is unacceptable. 4 said that the 16 mods is unacceptable. But this is where you had a large number of people that said we want to move away from the 4x4 block. This piece of data convinced me to say the 4x4 block is something that we do need to move away from. I want to talk mostly about the multi-purpose block because I think this is the most important feature of the AB block as we move forward. In the 16 mod schedule, you could not get the advisory period built in without interrupting instructional time for a sizable portion of our students. The multi-purpose block allows us to have a 30-minute advisory and a 45-minute multi-purpose use period every other day where no students are enrolled in any courses, and that would give us access to those students without interrupting instructional time. In this period is where we could set up targeted study halls for RTI intervention, to conduct credit recovery, to maybe enhance and support clubs and activities. They can be a traditional study hall for students that don't require Tier 2 intervention. Special presentations and school-wide activities can be conducted during that time without interrupting instruction. Group counseling and college and career advisement and counselor access to students also can be done without interruption of instructional time. And that is the biggest key part to having a universal study hall exist at the same time in the schedule. It is so that study halls are not wasted time, they're targeted time. And so that all of these other things that our school needs and wants to do for the betterment of our students can be conducted without interrupting instructional time. Students will still have the ability to get up to 7 courses, and they will still be required to take a minimum of 6. We will have to make some changes to the way we do business if we move into an AB block schedule. So there are some operational adjustments that I would recommend. I would recommend moving to a 24 credit graduation requirement up from the current 22, because students would have 28 slots in which to fit classes in. That is more than under the 16 mod schedule, so students will be taking more classes. I would expect about 20% of the graduating class would be able to graduate in 3 years if we stuck to the 22 credits. In the interest of providing a broad education, we should increase to 24 credits. We should add 1 credit for science, because they'll be losing a little bit of their lab times from chemistry and bio. We can make that up by making sure that every student takes a 4th-year experience in science. I believe in adding the half credit for personal finance in the history and business department, so that would increase them to 2.5 credits. I think math should be a full 4 credits, because we have lots of kids that want to bail on their math class halfway through their senior year, and I think they should stay put. And students would have a minimum of 6, and most would have 7 classes throughout their experience each year. They would also all have that guaranteed multi-purpose study period. Alternatives and modifications, why not? I really think the mod schedule is high stress and very hectic. More moving parts, 6 or 7 homework assignments every night, no flexibility for advisory and other SEL priorities, and there's no flexibility for other departments to use the science format of 3 mods. Students would not be able to get more than 5 classes in that example. So in equity sense, putting science on a 4-year plan instead of a 3-year plan and taking away the 3 mods would ensure that multiple pathways are easier to achieve for all students who want to prioritize things other than science. In the 4x4 block, music gets a terrible hit, and it is very devastating to their programs. They have to be all year long. Special education needs to be all year long, and it's difficult for them to operate outside of what the rest of the school is doing. AP classes and testing and science labs were drastically impacted by the 4x4 block. Modifying blocks or periods, I'm opposed to that too, which is why I'm sticking to a trunk format of an AB block, because modifications, the more you modify, the more confusion and inconsistency you're introducing into the system. I have a bias and I have filters, just like every other person that provides input into any issue. I have been in education for 29 years, 25 of them here at Bangor. My doctoral degree is in teaching and learning, and I have I've done my dissertation was in learning efficiency, cognitive load, and I have 10 years managing the master schedule, so I've seen a lot of the ins and outs of this process. I want school counselors to have more and more reliable access to students without interrupting instruction. Our SEL HRE focus needs to have that multi-purpose period and advisory. Equity equals access, and that is multiple pathways. So no matter who the student is, they need to be able to get access to things that are their needs or wants. Other than that, I have no horse in the race. I am not in an academic department. So my interest, I believe, is in balancing access to all of the departments. Implementation moving forward, it needs to be approved, it needs to be set up, and all of these other things will need to happen in order to make it a reality. And lastly, these are the people that I need to say thank you to, all of the people that have provided input and thought into this. I really, really do appreciate. So thank you for your time.